I am pleased to be able to introduce our speaker tonight, Scott Carbonara. Scott is known as the leadership therapist. He has a diverse background as an award-winning family therapist in the state of Michigan. He transitioned into corporate America, where he served in a senior executive role as chief of staff for a multi-billion-dollar company. Today, he's an international speaker, trainer, and management consultant specializing in leadership. He is also the author of 4 leadership books, including A Manager's Guide to Employee Engagement. Throughout all his work, Scott aims to bring authentic leadership to life from the boardroom to the family room. Please extend a warm welcome to Scott Carbonara.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I want to focus on the last thing she said. Years ago, I was sitting with my marketing person, and she said, I think we want to make your brand bringing authentic leadership to life from the boardroom to the family room. What that means is like you don't have to put on airs. You don't have to be pretentious. And I said, you know what? I don't like that. That sounds kind of like plop, plop, fizz, fizz. That's not what I want my brand to feel like. And she said, just trust me. Well, since my marketing expert is also my wife, I said, okay. And we had a conference in Alabama. There were 850 HR leaders and vendors and sponsors all around the meeting room. The woman who got up there and introduced me pulled out the paper, and she's trying to read it. She's trying to dial in on it, and she didn't have her glasses. And she announced to everyone in that group that I would be bringing authentic leadership to life from the boardroom to the bedroom. I don't even know what that means, but I got a standing ovation, which was pretty cool. I think maybe she was confused. She had been reading Shades of Grey and got a little, distracted by it. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you about leadership tonight. If you were here a couple years ago when I spoke, raise your hands. Okay. The summary of that presentation, thanks for coming back. The summary of that is engagement is within your grasp, and you have to be responsible to engage yourself. Tonight's presentation is a follow-up that says we are all leaders, and as leaders, we need to become contagious. You're a leader if you have the ability to influence someone else. Is that all within your power? Do you have the ability to influence someone else? We agree it's not about title, how much money you make, and what your view is out of your corner office. Good. It's really a matter of relationships and the right focus. So let's just use relationships since it's something we all understand. Now this guy here, he's single. He's trying to be in a relationship. How can you tell? He cares about how he looks. He's looking in the mirror, he's doing his hair, he's checking his breath. He's doing the best he can with what he's got. Now this guy is married, and you can tell because he's given up, right? Actually, it's the same guy, just usually 2 years later. But this guy is saying, you know what, I got what I wanted, and now I don't have to try any harder. That's not how you stay engaged, actually. That's how you become single again. Now this guy understands what a relationship is, what engagement is. It's not the will you marry me. That's the starting point. A relationship is, do you see that she's smiling? That's the reason he's smiling. See, happy wife, happy life, it's true. It is very true. Secondly, do you know why he's so happy? It's because his focus is on her and not on himself. If you're a leader, you're more concerned about those around you than concerned with yourself. That's what makes a good leader. When I hear someone has been here 10 years and still volunteering, that's a leader. That's awesome. That's servant leadership at its finest. This is what engagement takes and what it requires. So that's the part I want to talk to you tonight. Last time I was here, I gave you my definition of engagement, and I talked about when you are engaged, all 6 of these things work in tandem to create something that looks and feels like engagement. Now I want to suggest that it doesn't matter if you manage virtual teams in multiple states or countries. Every time you sit down, it has the feeling of you're having a coffee chat one-on-one with someone else. That's why I call it get pissed. Notice it's get pissed, not get pissed. See, get pissed is to get angry, or if you're in England, it's to get drunk. I don't want you to do either one of those tonight. I want you to get pissed. That's the sound you make when you're trying to court one person at a time. And that stands for get personal, get strength-based, get social, and get targeted. And I want to talk through how those 4 elements work in tandem for you to bring out the engagement in others. Let's start with get personal. You have people that you work with. They might do the same job for the same company, and they've been in the same seats year after year after year. But who wants to be treated like a peep? We all want to be treated like that peep, don't we? That's what it is to get personal. Now, let's say you had some openings on your team, and so you had 4 gentlemen come in and give you their resumes. These 4. Who are these 4 gentlemen? Rock and roll. Who said that? Right here? All right, you get the prize. Now, everyone knows Freddie Mercury. I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about the guy behind him. Who's that? Brian May. Depending on what resource you look at, he's rated between number 2 and number 22 of the top rock guitarist of all times. And this is what he looks like today. Not a whole lot's changed. I was working with some officers at Camp Lejeune. They were going to be retiring from military, and they were going into civilian life. And I showed this picture, and a guy right down front with the buzz cut went, pfft. And I said, what's wrong with the picture? He said, get a haircut. Now, obviously, he had a haircut. And what he was responding to is, if you lived through the 60s or you read about them, if you're not old enough, that was kind of the sign of rebellion, anti-authority, don't trust anyone over 30. That was the sign of the sexual revolution and rebellion. And maybe that's why he wears his hair that way. But maybe, this might have to make you suspend your disbelief, maybe he wears his hair this way because he wants to look like his hero, Sir Isaac Newton. I mean, is it possible? Look, they're twins separated at birth. They got the same coif going on. You know what they also have in common with one another? Yeah, they both earned PhDs in astrophysics. They both have stars named after them because they both discovered stars. Additionally, Brian May was the chancellor of John Moores Liverpool University, the ambassador for math and science for all of Great Britain. Not bad, because when you think of rock and roll, what are the 3 words that come to mind? Sex, drugs, and more rock and roll. Not bad for a rock and roller, is it? And if you were to look at his resume and then look at him, you might honestly say to yourself, there might be some not-so-random drug screening in the near future, right? Just based on reputation of what you think you know. But if you don't take the time to get to know him, you miss the mark. So in 2010, when he was interviewed by the BBC and they asked, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered by your rock and roll legacy? Or do you want to be remembered for your exploration of the solar system? Do you know what he said? Neither of those are that important to me. I want to be remembered for protecting defenseless animals from the barbaric fox hunt. So if you happen to meet Brian May, I wouldn't do this and sing like Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm sure someone else has done that before. You don't have to talk about the stars or how's Carl Sagan doing. If you thought you know about him and you didn't take the time to really know him, you would completely miss the mark. Leaders don't make assumptions, but we do it all the time, don't we? We think we know people. In Chinese, the characters for respect are serious honor, and we know that we need to avoid all sorts of stereotypes or assumptions based on gender, age, race, nation of origin, etc., and so forth, except we somehow say, except for millennials, because we all agree they're as annoying as hell, right? Heck, just be honest, have you ever thought that to yourself? Go ahead, have you ever thought that to yourself? I'm going to tell you why that's not right and that's not accurate. Let me just go back and say, every single time a group broke into corporate America or into American culture in general, we call them those people as a way of diminishing them. We are so much more than a sum of stereotypes that people want to assign to us. If you take a moment and get to know us. Because you know what? It wasn't that long ago before those people broke into corporate America. You know who those people are? Some of them are you. They're called women. In 1942, Mass Transportation magazine, which was funded by the federal government, had a man write an article about how to get more efficiency from women folk. Now, in 1942, where were a lot of the men folk? They were fighting in the war efforts. So women joined the workforce in whole new numbers. So this man thought, you know, in case you haven't worked with the gentler sex, I better write a primer so people have an idea of how to work well with them. So here's one of his tips. If you can get them, pick young married women. They're less likely to be flirtatious, but still have the pep and interest to work hard and deal with the public efficiently. Can I get an amen? I better not. This is not something we would think HR would be looking for nowadays, I would hope, right? How about this one? This is my personal favorite. While there are exceptions, husky gals, those just a little on the heavy side, are likely to be more even-tempered than their underweight sisters. Now, I don't know who got the worst of it, the husky gals or their slacker, underweight, skinny sisters, but they both got hit pretty hard on this one. Who wrote the article? A man. Is he the SME when it comes to what women want? I would think not. And unfortunately, a lot of the assumptions people make about millennials are written by non-millennials as a way to be funny and to put down something they don't understand. The reality of it is, you in your job and your role and the success of your company rests with this generation. And you need more of them, not fewer of them. And here's why. See that 2020? The only line you need to look at is that one right there. That is when the workforce will be made up mostly of millennials. Anyone here a Generation Xer? We never had our day, did we? Never, ever. Why? Because the boomers were huge. We were small. Why? Because our boomer parents were too busy working to have more of us. But then they made up for it because now there are a lot of millennials. We need to understand them because, and one day I was in San Diego. I was working for 3 groups, a marketing group, a PMI group, and an HR group. And the presidents of every single one of the chapters I spoke for, a millennial, was in charge of the group. They're here, they're now, they're going nowhere, they're going to grow. So the more we understand about them that's legitimate, the better, so we know how to get more efficiency from them. And we know how to work well with them because a lot of the false assumptions lead us to saying stereotypically untrue things that really hurt us instead of help us. Is there anyone in this room who is a millennial born in that little age cluster? If you're here, would you stand up? I just want to see who you are. No one's going to throw anything. Just stand up. Now, I want to show you, look, our president here is a millennial. Give him a hand. So when people want to say, thank you, you can sit down. When people want to say, well, they're slackers, they want to have everything given to them. Yeah, like they volunteer for leadership roles. They take on new responsibilities. I wish others would do the same. Here's why you need more of them. They are team-loving collaborators, whereas other generations were taught how to be lone rangers. Now, I was a Renaissance man when I was in school. I was a team-loving collaborator. Sadly, the principal called it cheating, and I was suspended. But I kind of liked the team approach. It was funny. I had finished grad school, and I was talking to my dad after I got my first job, and I'm complaining that I'm on this team, and when something is assigned to us, I feel like I'm the only one who cares. I feel like I'm the only one that tries to do anything. He said, you went to grad school, and it took you grad school to learn that? And I'm like, well, no, actually, I didn't learn that in grad school. I learned that the first week on the job. This is something that millennials know. You know why? Because my 7-year-old has had more experience working in a team than I did through grad school. When I went to school, there was a salutatorian, a valedictorian, and a whole bunch of assorted idiots, right? There were 2 winners, and the rest of you were dummies at some different level. It was a competition for who could be first, and then most people just became average. Not so with the millennials. The millennials understand how to share information. Now, we have some crowdsourcing is what they call it now. So if you've ever used Angie's List or IMD, it's the sharing of mass information that makes us all a little bit smarter. And it really started with Sir Francis Galton. He said common people are so stupid they shouldn't even be allowed to vote. And to prove it, he brought an oxen out into the town square and he said, I want people to guess how much that oxen weighs. People guessed. Over 800 guesses, they were all wrong. They were high, they were low, they were all over the place. But as the father of modern statistics, he started looking at those numbers later and he realized something. The more numbers he generated, he found that that median number was spot on. You needed the opinions of many. Unfortunately, many of us still think like lone rangers. I have tenure, I have authority, I have responsibility, so the answer must be mine, without really accepting that most of the time the best answer can come out of the wisdom of the masses. That's something that millennials do automatically better than I know I do. They're risk takers. Now, that has a good and a bad with it. And people will say they're risk takers because they've never failed. Have you heard this one? They got a trophy just for showing up. Have you heard that one? Yeah. Who bought them the trophies? You did. They didn't ask for the trophies. They were perfectly fine to go and lose. But no, we had to give them a trophy. So that's really our paradigm. We're pushing on others. There was no trophy for showing up. We think that they're risk takers because they didn't fail. And they are much more willing for personal sacrifice, because you remember when someone would do like an O.J. Simpson through the airport? Do you remember when that meant running very fast? You know, the rental car? See, that's old people remember the Hertz rental car commercial. People that aren't old enough don't remember that. O.J. has a completely different connotation. This generation, they don't remember a time where you went to the airport without TSA and being searched. I'm of the generation where I remember you could just show up at the last minute, you could run through and be fine. And now every time I go, I'm delayed. I can get there 2 hours late or early, and I'm still going to be bumping it because I'm going to be searched. I keep threatening to show up naked and just getting dressed on the other side of TSA because I always get selected for that special treatment. Well, they don't mind. They think, man, it's okay. If I have to give up some of my personal freedom for others, that's cool. So they are good at risk-taking. Is your job risk-averse or risk-tolerant? If you care about them, you know what your job is to put your arm around them and say, let me explain the tolerance level around here. Let me explain why we don't just guess and hope it works. Let me tell you about the culture. Your job is, too many times when someone new comes into an organization, it's like an episode of a prison show where it's like, ooh, fresh meat, fresh meat. It's like you want to torment and haze the new person coming in instead of saying, let me put my arm around you and show you the ropes here. Let me show you how to get along. I made some mistakes early on. Let me help you avoid them. They're risk takers. You need to tell them how much risk you're willing to take, how much risk they should be willing to take so they can be successful. They do work smarter, not harder. Another frustration, I've had project managers say that these kids, which is one thing they call them that they shouldn't, but they'll come to meetings. When they do come to meetings, they're on their phone as if they're playing Tetris. By the way, millennials don't know what Tetris is, okay? So that is not something that they created or got hooked on. What they're doing on their phone is, guess what? They're usually doing things like research and doing things that are assigned to them and taking notes. They're not just doing other things or connecting on Facebook and sharing a picture. So that's about working smarter, not harder. You know why that is? Because this generation is very tech savvy. I think it's really cool that you have an online survey that you're encouraging people to use here. That's utilizing technology. If you've been a project manager for 10 years, you've seen new technology after new technology come on and change the way you do your job. And that's going to continue as long as you're in the workforce. Remember Yahoo, when everyone had Yahoo? How many of you still have a Yahoo account? My brother still has an AOL account, which I don't know how you even get one of those these days. But things change. The latest, like social media, was Facebook. I got on Facebook so I could watch my kids, who immediately jumped off Facebook. And now Facebook is a bunch of old people like me. There are no cool people on Facebook anymore because I joined it. But they are tech savvy. We need to appreciate the solutions that they're going to bring, because things that we might have fear or apprehension or confusion about, they don't. They are cause-based, and this is my favorite trait about this group. They never said they wanted to work for a paycheck. So many of them will do businesses that have a social charity component because they want to give back. They live in a world where they see needs and opportunities and they want to help others. When I worked in the Blues, I was executive chief of staff for Healthcare Service Corporation, which is the parent company of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, Texas, New Mexico, etc. I had this young man on my team who was a millennial. And he said, let me ask you, I see that like every few weeks they change the flowers and the plants in the lobby. Do you know what they do with them? I said, I have no idea. Let's go to the office of the building and ask. So we asked, and they said, well, we have a company that comes in, they dump the old stuff, and they put in new stuff. And he said, well, could I take it? Could I take the plants? And the lady said, what do you want to do with them? He said, well, aren't there schools, hospitals, nursing homes right in the downtown Chicago area where we could bring something to make someone's day? Wouldn't that be cool instead of just throwing them in the landfill that we pass on these beautiful plants? The lady said, that's a great idea. And he said, do you mind if I do it? I said, sure. You can do it during your own lunch hour. So every 3 weeks, he sent out an email. The first time he did it, he had 12 people. 5 years later, he had about 120 people showing up to gather those plants and to go. After about 2 months, marketing found out about it and said, we are so behind this idea. We want to make just one little change. Would you put a sticker on those plants from your friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois? See, this kid didn't think of it because there was a marketing angle or there was a charity angle. He did it because it was the right thing to do. It cost no money and it spread joy. Don't we need more of those in the workforce instead of the people who are waiting for us to take a vacation so they can make us look bad and take our jobs? When you care about someone, you learn about their professional style. Even though we all have to do certain things we don't like to do, if you care about someone, you'll find their professional style and you'll customize some of the work to them. The same goes with their personal style. Some people say they want to work from home, and they work from home and they realize they hate working from home because they miss the social aspects. How can you work with people remotely when they have a high need for that attention and that conversation and that socialness? That's your job, is to find out, how do I connect with them? Purpose. Why do they even show up for work? Years ago, I was hiring for customer service representatives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and an older man came in his late 60s. He had worked for a military contractor that worked through Los Alamos. He had his own company, and everything that he did looked like spy stuff, like military and science, and I had no idea why he wanted to be a customer service rep. So I asked him, Joe, why are you interested in this kind of work? He said, well, I wasn't really, but when I sold my business, my wife and I planned on traveling. I wasn't expecting her to get sick and die shortly after. We had spent our whole life making plans about seeing the world, and then I found myself alone. And the worst of it is she's the one that dealt with all the bills, all the health insurance. I didn't know what to do. He said, I was so depressed and despondent, I just wanted to die. And for 2 years, I did nothing. I didn't leave the house. I didn't shower. I didn't shave. I didn't talk to anyone. Finally, I knew I had to do something. I made a phone call. I talked to someone here in this building. They patiently cared with me, cried with me. They helped me every step of the way. It took days and days and days to sort out all the stuff I had in a shoebox at home. And when I was done, I realized maybe I do have a purpose left. I want to do what that woman did for me. Joe helped us create something called the Seasons of Life. And it means we have dedicated resources that'll take as much time as it takes to help people who are lost and over their heads when they have these questions, they don't know how to deal with them. When I left, he was 75 years old and he was still there. Now, why is it important that I knew his purpose? If I wanted to motivate him, you know what I couldn't say is, Joe, chop, chop, take the next call, buddy. You're not going to get the promotion if you're slow like this. Because he didn't care about the promotion. He wasn't angling for a corner office. He was angling for a reason to get out of bed. And that was just to help someone else. Purpose is the most powerful thing we have. See, it's not the words. It's the meaning behind the words and our motivation in them. So let's just do a little exercise. I'm going to knock 3 times and ask you a question. Where are you? And I want you to say in unison, we're in here. Ready? Where are you? Okay, that was pretty bad. Let's try it again. Let me give you a different context this time. There's been an earthquake, and you've been buried under rubble for 12 hours. You don't hear anything. You don't see anything. You can't move. And now you're going to hear some knocking above your head, and you're going to hear a question. Now answer it. Where are you?
We're here.
See, I loved what Venus said about, I hope you love what you do. When you love what you do, a whole different you shows up. That's not something you can fake. You know, they say fake it till you make it. You can do that like, I have a terrible cold, but I'm going to try to talk like this. You can try to fake it for short sprints, but to stay on your A game all day long is really hard. As a leader, people are going to see right through you. You see the people you work with more than you see most of your family members every day. They can read you like a book. If you show up with the purpose, you've taught them how to show up with the purpose. The final one, as I'd say, is it's about applause. How do people want to be reinforced? Years ago, a company I worked for had this great idea. If someone had perfect attendance, they could attend the year-end gala that was held with the board and all the senior vice presidents. This woman named Carla was from Danville, Illinois. She won the award. She had perfect attendance. So she and her husband went to this gala in downtown Chicago. For this event, her husband needed a suit, to which he went to the local JCPenney's and bought the first and only suit he would ever wear for a one-time dinner meeting. Her husband was a farmer. He didn't want the suit. He didn't want to wear the suit. He didn't want to go, but he went to be a good husband. Afterwards, one of the coworkers asked Carla, "So Carla, how was it? Tell us all about it." She said, "I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to be sick this year." You know, they would have done a lot better job if they said, "Carla, thank you. Here's $50. Go get some beer and pizza for your family. Go to the movies or whatever." Why? Because when you give chocolate to a diabetic, just because you like chocolate doesn't mean they want it. Putting someone on the spot and calling them out and saying, "Yay, look at you." If they're introverted, you've just humiliated them and embarrassed them. But some people don't write them the note. You can't embarrass them. You could have them stand up and set them on fire. They would love it and ask for a microphone. You have to know your people. What is going to excite them? Now let's get you involved. In your handout here, there's a little bingo game. I like this activity. I'll tell you when to stop, but here's how bingo works. You're trying to get 5 in a row, horizontally, vertically, diagonally, I don't care. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to find other people that you could say, "I want someone who has this," and you find someone who has that and have them sign your sheet of paper saying, "Yeah, that's me, I got it." One person per paper. You can't have someone sign 6 of them for you. I want to find out who can get the information the quickest. When you have bingo, though, I don't want you to yell bingo. I'm going to go up here. When you have bingo, I want you to lock eyes with me and let me know you got it. And I'll tell you when to stop. Go. You are a very interesting group to watch. Some of you had the strategy of a spider, and you just stayed in your chair, and when something came by, you shot out a web and pulled someone in. And you still were able to do this to me. How many of you got it? How many of you got a 5 in a row? You got a bingo. Raise your hands. How many? Keep your hands up if you kept playing after you had 5 in a row. Wow, fascinating. See, what do we think about someone who does just enough to get by? Slacker. Wow, we've just redefined what it is to be a good performer. It's not doing enough to get by. I remember the first time I had a teacher who said, "Here's the syllabus. If you do every single thing that's in here this semester, you will receive a C." What? She said, "Guess how many A's I've given?" 0. Wow. So wouldn't it be cool if people did what they did, not because they were told you have to do 5 in a row, but they kept going? And some of you did keep going, and why did you do it? Because you're suck-ups? I'm sorry, what? It was fun. It was fun. You were engaged. It wasn't a task. It wasn't a job. It wasn't something that you wanted to check off your to-do list. Some of you, as soon as I said go, you got up and started moving. You are the movers and shakers. You're the extroverts. Other people stayed at their table and just asked little questions. It doesn't matter. You all understood the purpose, and none of you, you're getting the same award, which is, nothing. There's no prize. But some of you had more fun when you were doing it. It's the difference between introverts and extroverts. It's about being competitive. Some people did it because you wanted to do it. There are typically 2 questions I like to know about people when I know them well enough. If you know someone reasonably well, here's a powerful question. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment? I just hired someone 3 months ago, and this is a question I asked her. You know what's nice about this question is because it's not really asking for any part of their life. It's trying to find out, what are you willing to divulge to me? You know what she told me? I've been married to the same man for 16 years, and I haven't killed him one time. And I have 3 lovely kids. That told me something about her, and she's true to her word. Family is everything. So flexibility is everything. So when I want to reward her, you know what I do? I send her flowers. No, I give her more flexibility. When I know family's important to her and her 14-year-old is a state runner, When I can go on a Saturday competition, I will show up and I will cheer for her daughter at the competition. Why? I know that's what matters to her. Here's another question you might not want to ask at work, but you can if you're really close. And I would dare say if you're in a relationship with someone, you know the answer to this. What is your greatest regret? And the reason why you're asking that is not so you can mash on a sore spot. It's so that you can protect them and you can help them avoid it. You can be the kind person that guides people away from a wound that you know is there. I've done an exercise similar to this with another project management group. Someone came up to me afterwards and said, you know, I think I know more about the people in this room than I know about people I've worked with for years. And that's sad because we often think that work is about work and efficiency and getting it done. But really, people don't quit jobs, they quit supervisors. People don't quit supervisors as much as they quit teams where they feel like I don't fit in. Your job, leader, manager, project manager, peer, is to help people fit in and know what their purpose is. Second point is this, strengths. How to be strength-based. You don't need a crystal ball to know that we're more passionate about things that fall into our area of strengths. No one's strength would be, for example, changing a diaper. Like, you win, I know you love it, so you go ahead and do it. We gravitate toward things we love. Strengths are hard to find. Gallup told us this, that in America especially, we are harder on ourselves than people in any other nation. We have this complex that we think that we have to work harder, try harder, we're never good enough. So test yourself. If your kid brought home this report card, where would your eyes fall? What the heck is wrong with you? I thought you studied. You go to a great restaurant, you have a great meal, you share a nice bottle of wine, but all you can think on your drive home is, why did they have to seat him next to my chair? Why do people even bring their kids to a restaurant? We're constantly focusing on the negative instead of the strength, the positive. So we can learn a lot about a positive lesson by focusing on Tiger's weakness. I should be more specific, his golf weakness. When he was new, he was known for two things. He had a great long game. He could shoot that ball further and straighter than just about anyone. Secondly, when he got on the sand traps, he was stuck, game over. Now, a traditional coach would say this, Tiger, you're really bad in the sand trap. So I got a bucket of balls here. Chip it out, chip it out, chip it out, chip it out. And that's what he would help Tiger Woods do all day, is to get out of the sand trap, which is foolish. Because a positive psychology coach would say this, Tiger, let's use your strength to stay out of the sand trap. See, because if you hit bucket of ball after bucket of ball out of the sand trap, your only possible goal would be to what? Suck less? And I would suggest that you never want to get good at being stuck in a problem. It's never good to be in a sand trap. So instead, fixate on the solution, the positive, the strength. So when you go on vacation, you take a picture of this, right? What is this? Yeah, but you get home and you say, oh, I got to fix that. I can't believe I did that one. And then, you know what we turn it into? Just another tower somewhere in Rome. Somewhere in I don't know, it was Italy, I think. Yeah, we diminish the value of it and the importance of it by trying to make it just like everything else. And I have fallen prey to this too. I had this employee, I jokingly have referred to her as my illiterate employee. There was a time our company was growing so fast and my department was growing so fast that I would inherit new employees overnight and I'd find out about it in the morning. So I had every one of my new employees take something called the Achiever, which is like a mix of the Myers-Briggs and the 16PF, so I could get to know a lot about the person quickly. Because I had a big team, it was easier for me to get to know them that way. I was reading a profile of this new employee, we'll call her Mary, and it said, Mary probably struggles with English because it's a second language. And I'm thinking, Mary does not know English as a second language. Mary was born 15 miles from where I was born. English is her only language, and it's not a good one for her. She would send out an email, and I would think, can I buy a vowel? Can you put a punctuation? I don't know what this is. I can't spell it. It's all caps. And unfortunately, my job was I was the director of strategic communication and change management. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this employee? So I sent her to one of those $99 Fred Pryor seminars, and she got about $99 better, which means not at all better. Then I sent her to a half-week workshop, and she got a little better, but finally I realized she needs hands-on. So I needed in real time, I said, Jamie is my guru in grammar. I'm going to have you send everything to her to proofread before you hit send on any emails because I don't want the reputation of the department to suffer because of anything that gets sent out. And that worked insofar as that she stopped sending out email. She started leaving voicemails for people when she knew they weren't around. She'd stop by their desk. She would use Post-it notes, which is a really inefficient way to work when you have people in different states. I didn't know what I was going to be able to do with her. And around that time, my boss said, you know, we've been using Accenture to crush our employee engagement data. Do you have anyone on your team who's good with numbers? And you know what I remembered? Is that Mary, while she really struggled with English, she had like this wicked numeric perception. She was off the charts good with numbers. So I called Mary in and I said, Mary, I got a deal. Do you want to work on this project generating data? And I saw her get really excited and she got all shiny-eyed and then she got dark again. And I said, what are you thinking? And she said, that job has a lot of writing, doesn't it? And I said, oh yeah, but you won't do any of it. I will assign someone to help you with the written communication. I just want you to make sure the numbers are accurate. Will you try it? And she said, I'll try it. I had a roll-off plan of 6 months to have Accenture roll off within that time period. I got rid of them in 2 months. She knew the data so much better than they did. They were sending new hires to learn from her. She saved us over $500,000. It reminds me of what Einstein said. Everyone is a genius. But if you treat a fish like an idiot because it can't climb a tree, you're missing the point of what a fish is good at. That's not what a fish does. Finding out what someone is good at, what they excel in, is making them come alive. When I had a small team, this was the bare minimum. These are the questions that I would really want to know from everyone in my team. Now, you can read Now Discover Your Strengths. You can do online profiles. You can read Strength Finder 2.0. All of them are excellent resources. There are free resources online. But as far as having a conversation face-to-face, this is the most powerful way to find out what are the strengths that you might have that I might not even know about. Let's do this. With a partner, I want you to answer this one question. Question number 6. What makes you come alive? It can be something that you get paid for. It can be something that you are retiring to eventually. But what makes you come alive? Answer that question. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to have it both sides. Go. I found it interesting in asking this question of groups for many years. No matter how quiet a group is, when you ask them to talk about what makes you come alive, the room takes it up a notch with its energy. Did you have a hard time talking about what makes your tail wag? It's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting because it's right there on the surface and you get excited about it and you want to keep talking about it and it helps you to dream. Imagine how you would feel if your boss at work asked you about that. And you had that type of a conversation where you were giving a part of your dream to someone who could help develop you and make that dream come true. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But that when we share our secrets with someone else, that's a pretty precious gift we can give someone. Does anyone have anything that makes you come alive that you want to share with the group? Right here.
Oh, I found out from Gwen the answer to that question long before you asked it. We just happened to be in the dinner line together, and I found out what makes her come alive.
Cheesecake?
Saxophone music.
Saxophone music makes Gwen come alive. That's awesome. And that's just in a conversation there. So the next time you hear, is it Kenny G? You can kind of say, hey, I was thinking of you. That's it. It's a relationship building question. It's about relationship and it's about focus. Imagine if you asked this question of people around you and you remembered it and you could start a conversation with them a few days later to show that you were asking because you genuinely cared about them. Get social. We are meant to be social animals. A few years back, I was talking to a couple, Dale and Eva. They had lost their 5-year-old daughter about 50 years before. And when Dale started talking about it, Eva excused herself and left the room. And I said, Dale, I'm sorry, I wouldn't have asked questions about it. Is she going to be okay? And he said, no, but she was never okay. He said when our daughter died, she used that staid New England personality. She never talked about it. And I would talk to anyone who would listen to me. I was teaching classes. I was a professor at the time. I would tell my students. I would talk to coworkers. Everyone in the store, what's going on? I opened up, and he said, what I found is after about 3 months, I could start to reemerge, and I could start to breathe again. There's something that happens when we share our burdens. Like when we share a joy, it doubles. When we share a burden, it's cut in half. And that's what he was really telling, and it's scientific. There's something embedded in when we are social and we're taking something that's part of us and we're building a relationship through that storytelling, we grow closer to others. Research has backed it up, going back 70 years. It's now 75 years, but a 70-year Harvard men's study. Who didn't attend Harvard 75 years ago? Women. See what's changed? That's why they only studied men. What they found is it's an indicator. How many close social relationships you have is an indicator of your overall happiness and success in life. It's pretty powerful. They used to say when you have a heart attack, it's how close you are to a hospital that determines if you're going to recover fully. They found that there's something else even more telling. How many people come and visit you in the hospital within the first 48 hours? If a lot of people come and see you, you are loved and you know it. If no one comes and sees you, you won't be missed. The greatest indicator of not bouncing back from a heart attack is really the social isolation and not having people care for you. That's pretty powerful. We are meant to be social creatures. We are meant to exist in a society. Your employees are already social. You're already social. How many of you have a Facebook account? Yeah, it was neat originally, right? Connecting with people you haven't talked to in years. Well, I scraped these off my Facebook wall about 2 years ago. Find the real comment from one of my friends. I hate my job. One day I'll tell my boss to ES&D and FO&D. I checked with the linguist. If you're not sure what that means, the and-D is and-I. And if you don't know what the rest of it is, come see me afterwards. An entire village of idiots could not have bred a more dysfunctional team than mine. Friends don't let friends work for insert company name here. I am so proud of my company. Which is the real one?
Entire village of idiots.
All of the above. See, employees already are, barbecue evangelists. They're already talking about your job. You think about it, the next time you're getting together socially. So where do you work? When someone goes, you shouldn't have asked, but they're going to want to tell you. And you know what's going to come out of their mouth is you have to spend money as a corporate executive to try to quash that type of negative buzz. See, used to be, Ford Market Research said, when you're a satisfied customer, you tell on the average of 8 people. When you're a dissatisfied customer, you tell on the average of 20. That was in 1980. Then Al Gore invented the internet. Now when you're disgruntled, how many people can you tell instantly? Virally. It gets picked up. Every stupid thing you do can go out like this, which is making brand management even harder. Now think about it. If someone were to talk to you after you had a drink and you're at the bowling alley and said, so what do you think about where you work? Well, honestly, what would come out of your mouth? We're already social. And you know what should come out of your mouth if you're to be a leader at work? A few years ago, Boston Global did a big survey. Every different country, across gender, ethnicity, age, these 10 things were found universally engaging no matter where they did the study. What do you think the number one thing employees demanded from an engagement standpoint? What stands out? Yes. Yeah. They talk about, well, I want better benefits, I want more pay. You know what? What's even more important than having a good relationship with the boss is having a good relationship with those they work with every single day. How much money does it take to appreciate someone for the job they do? And is that the job of the manager, the director, the vice president? I know people who come to work for the person who sits next to them, not for the person who sits behind the door. You might be one of them. We have found this time after time after time. People show up because they don't want to let someone down. That's why the Q12, Gallup, first break all the rules, ask the question, I have a best friend at work. If you are a manager, if you're a director, if you're a vice president, your job is not to be the BFF of every single person on your team. Your job is to create the kind of environment where people can develop BFF relationships. You should be encouraging that. And you can do some creative things. Different teams have told me some stories. Here's one. I did a behavioral coaching class a few years back. It was in an operations unit that did claims processing. And I looked at the data of performance, and this one supervisor had higher data numbers than anyone else, any of her peers. And I called her and I said, Pat, what are you doing differently? Your scores are just like heads and shoulders above everyone else. She said, I'm so excited about it. I just stumbled on this. She said, I went to the teacher supply store with my daughter, who's a teacher, and I saw these bald Mr. Potato Head stickers. And I bought them with all these eyeballs and ears and noses and stuff. And I slapped one on the cubicle wall of every one of my employees. And while I'm doing it, they're like, Pat, what are you doing? She said, I'm going to tell you on Friday. So then on Friday, I gathered my team together and I said, you've all noticed your Mr. Potato Head sticker. Here's what's going to happen. When you have hit the goal for quality and productivity, you get to pick out an ear, a nose, an eye, whatever you want to for your Mr. Potato Head sticker. How do you think that went over?
Like a lead balloon.
Pat, we're not in kindergarten. Oh, Pat, you get so excited about these little cheesy things. Or bless your heart, which is Southern for you're an idiot. But she said something amazing happened. I did the first meeting. And I talked to the first woman. I said, you get to pick whatever you want. She said, Pat, that's really not necessary. No, it'll be fun. Pick something. She said, okay, give me an ear. And she said, over time, people started to get more excited about it. They were getting really creative with their Mr. Potato Head stickers. She said, and I knew I was onto something because 2 months in, this employee met me when I came in the door and said, would you go over my numbers first? She said, sure, I'd be happy to. She said, before I got to my desk, another employee came up to me and said, can you go over my numbers first? She said, well, I can do your second. Why do you want to go first? They said, because there's one monocle left and I want it. What she had done with this is you no longer have to brag and say, by the way, I just want to make a little announcement to my peers. I am awesome and have been for 3 months. No, you didn't have to say a word. All you needed to do is to step back and say, I'll let my Mr. Potato Head sticker speak for itself. What you created was bragging rights. So I'm telling this to a group in Chicago, union folks. The manager, Tony, is shaking his head and he said, Dad, you don't know my people. That's not going to work in my environment. That'll work with people in the cornfields. And I said, well, fine. You know, you can use maybe firearms or cocaine, whatever it is you want to get them excited. And everyone laughed because Tony looked at me and then he said, you know, you're right. I said, it's about Pat's attitude. She wanted to do something nice. She gave them a way of being recognized and feeling like they mattered. And they took it for that. Tony, if you do that, your folks in the mailroom will feel like they matter to you. Period. It's not about the monetary value of a Mr. Potato Head sticker is still nothing. It's about you taking the time to make them feel special. That's something you have an opportunity to do no matter what your title is. The final one is get targeted. The target is the 3 points. So many times we're fighting a losing battle because we try to push something that doesn't want to be pushed. Instead, we need to get behind them. Get targeted, the first thing it means is clarifying expectations. I heard a story about Matthew and Mark. They were twin 8-year-olds. They had their Uncle Ollie come and stay with them for a couple weeks. He was on leave from the military, and he's a great guy, great storyteller, very colorful language. He cursed a lot. And Mom thought, as soon as Ollie leaves, I'm going to nip it in the bud. I am not going to let this language continue. I don't want my boys talking like sailors. So Ollie left. The next morning, she's determined now, I'm going to nip it in the bud. Matthew comes down the stairs and she rubs his head and says, hi, sunshine, how are you this morning? She said, what can I get you for breakfast? He said, I don't care, Ma. Just get me some damn Cheerios. And she slapped his mouth. Matthew jumps back. He holds his face. She didn't hit him hard, but it got his attention. She had embarrassed him, and she had never done something like that before. He ran upstairs crying. Now, Mark was at the top of the stairs coming down, and he saw the whole thing. So he starts coming down the stairs, and he sees that Mom is still kind of worked up. She's still kind of breathing. And she's looking at him as he comes down the stairs. Mark is judging the length of Mom's arm as he gets to the bottom of the stairs. And she's following him with her eyes and says, how about you, Mark? What do you want for breakfast? He said, hey, I don't care. Sure as hell won't be Cheerios. Sometimes we don't get what we want because we haven't been clear about what it is that we want. Go back to the risk tolerance. When someone cares about you, they try to keep you safe. They try to show you, let me show you the limits here. Let me show you the area where you're safe to operate in. Be clear about what is expected. This is a classic book, came out in the 90s. I heard Marcus Buckingham talk. It was a galley copy at the time. There are 12 questions. If you can answer a high 5 out of each 12 of those, it says that you are the most highly engaged, productive employee anywhere in any company. One of the questions is, I know what's expected of me at work. If you don't know what's expected, you're going to keep guessing and you're always going to miss it. Number 2, get targeted. It means if you have influence to bring someone onto your team or to hire new talent, make sure you hire well. Harvard takes 1 out of 14 qualified applicants. It's really hard to get into Harvard. It's even harder to get into Zappos. They will take 1 out of 100 qualified applicants. What does Zappos even do? They sell shoes. They don't even make shoes. They sell other people's shoes. But Tony Hsieh, the CEO, said, I will only hire people I'd want to hang out with. What that means is when he moved to corporate headquarters and he said, I wish I could take you all with, they said, well, can we come? He said, yeah, but I can't pay you relocation. And they said, that's cool. We're going to move to come work with you again. How cool is that? If your kid says, you know, I've given a lot of thought, I'm not going to go to college, I'm going to go work for Zappos, say good for you, because it's hard to get in. That's a culture where he's creating something unique. He's creating the culture book. Employees are helping to tell the story of the business, of why what they do is so awesome. Second point of the get ready, aim, hire is ready, aim, fire. Do you remember this TV show? The warm, friendly, kind, personable Dr. House. So we watched the show and we could laugh because he wasn't our doctor. If he were our doctor, we would react very strongly and we'd be suing them. Do we ever put up with people and we say, well, that's just his way? Yes. Or she doesn't mean anything by it. She's just, you know, a little. We put up with them because they're delicate geniuses. Well, there's a book written for people like that by Robert Sutton. It's called The No Asshole Rule. And what he's done is he said, I can quantify the cost of having people like this in the workforce. His formula is called TCA, or total cost of asshole, and it shows that it's not just the person being torn in two that the cost is on. It's the people hearing it. When someone is rude, obnoxious, unkind, disrespectful, it lowers morale across the board. The best thing you can do is to double that person's salary on one condition: they never come to work again and talk to anyone at work again. You would do better. This culture is going away. Hollywood used to be so protected. As long as you were producing good movies, the Me Too movement is saying that that's not going to be the case anymore, and it's about time. Corporate America is having zero tolerance because this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. If you have the ability to influence getting someone off your team who is not a good cultural fit, fire now. Tony Hsieh, the same guy who says, I'll only hire people I'd want to hang out with, says this: after 6 months, if someone's not working out, I'll write them a check for $2,000 and say, you know what, it's just not working out. I'm just not feeling it. No hard feelings. He will pay people to leave. Right answer. The final get targeted means this: get behind their goals, not just your goals. That's my son, and this is his 9th birthday. I asked him, Jack, what do you want to do for your birthday this year? And he said, I want to go to a Cubs game. Do you guys have a baseball team here? Sorry. I'm almost done. Sorry. He said he wanted to go to a Cubs game. And I said, let me check the schedule. Well, the day they were in home on his birthday happened to be the home game, which was great, but it was also the first day of school. So I said, Jack, you can't. It's the first day of school. He said, well, I don't want to go to that school anyway. I should explain. He was given an opportunity to go to an accelerated school, which would have been better for him academically in every single possible way. Great opportunity for him to learn. So I said, Jack, do you want to go? And he said, thanks for the offer, Dad, but no. And I said, okay. Would you do it if I gave you $100? And he said, yeah, okay. And I gave him $100. And it was the best $100 I ever spent, because he ended up going to Ohio State University as a first-year sophomore. He was able to bypass a lot of things that he would have paid $40,000 for otherwise. He took it and said yes, but as he spent the money, he started to second-guess the decision. So, Dad, I didn't really want to go to that school anyway. And I said, let me call the principal and just see if it would be okay. So I called the principal, I explained, you know, son, new school, not really thrilled, birthday, big deal. And I laid it out for him. Could I take him to the Cubs game? And the principal said, well, I guess the answer to that is going to be based on how you answer this question. Do you have an extra ticket? Because I don't want to be here on the first day either. And I knew we were going to get along really, really well. He went to the game. He's 22 years old now, and he said, that is the most memorable birthday I ever had. At the time, the 2-hour rain delay, he was so upset. It's raining, it's raining. Sammy Sosa was having a great day. But you know, he ended up making friends with these bleacher bums because he memorized books of stats of players that had retired 20 years before, and they were so impressed with him. They bought him that hat he was wearing. That was like the coolest thing in the world, that he was being accepted in this adult baseball world. I got behind where he wanted to be. He got back into school, and he got where he needed to be. It's counterintuitive. For years, I would tell him about strengths. And I'd say, Jack, I'm proud of you on all these grades, but you're killing it here. You're just doing a terrible job here. He said, Dad, what do you teach about strengths? I'm interested in these subjects. I am not at all interested in these subjects. He had a point. In the things that he was passionate about, he excelled. When I got behind him here, he said, I'm going to see what new things I can learn, because maybe there's something more I can learn that I don't even know today. And that's what he did. And here's how it translates in corporate America. I had a position to hire someone for a corporate role. I sent 2 managers to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I said, find me the best candidate. And they all came back and said, Rod is the man you want. He's awesome. He's already a supervisor. It would be a lateral move, but he wants to get corporate experience. And I said, well, make him an offer. And they said, well, there's a catch. He only wants to work on our team for about 2 years, and then he wants to go back to operations. And I said, that's fine. They said, no, it's not. It's a 2-year learning curve to learn what we do in our job. We're going to spend all that time developing, and we're just going to lose him. And I said, look, we might lose him, or he might decide he wants to stay. But if we lose him, wouldn't it be cool to have someone who loves us and works well with us in operations on our side? We got to give him a chance. He stayed for 6 years. He went back to operations, became a manager. He was the best recruiter for my team. He said, everyone needs to go through corporate to understand what we're all about. A year after that, he became a director in marketing. I now had someone in marketing I could call on. Developing people. He said, I'll tell anyone who listens, you gave me my first opportunity. And you know what I did? I got behind where he said he wanted to be. Nothing more, nothing less. I listened to his dream of what he wanted, and I said, let me help you get there. And it's not hard. Here's how it works. I was at a retirement party for a colleague, Helene Terry. She had been a vice president for years. She'd worked at the company for like almost 35 years. And I said, Helene, I don't think I understood how you started working here. She said, well, I got a degree in journalism. I was going to be a writer. But when I got out of school, no one was hiring. So I came to this company, and I interviewed with a guy named Ray, who happened to be my boss at the time. And he said, well, what are you looking to do? And she said, I want to do writing. I don't really think I want to work here. She said, I was so naive and honest. I just told him, I don't think I want to work here. I want to be a great writer. He said, well, I don't really have any writing opportunities now, but I am getting asked to do more and more writing. I could find something for you just to give you a couple bucks and get you on your feet, and you can make some friends and get some skills if that would help. And she said, yeah, I'll take the job. So she said, I did it just thinking I'll work here for the summer, and then the economy will change, and I'll get a real job. She said, something happened. He came to me after a couple of weeks and said, I found something I think you might be interested in. Could you help me write this? And then over time, more and more of the job became what she was good at. She said at the same time, my coworkers were saying things like, Helene, we're going to go get a beer after work. Do you want to join us? And so I started to make friends. She said over time, we all started to get married. And as we got married, we started to stand up with each other at their weddings. We started to have kids. We became godparents to those kids. Some people went through divorces, and we cried with them at those times. We started to lose parents. We started to be a group. And all through it, my job became more what I wanted to do over time. And my boss, Ray, his job was to know where I wanted to be, to let me do what I love to do, and to create an environment where all these people around me for 30-plus years are all like family. I haven't worked a day in my life. I came here wanting a part-time job, just something to pay the bills, until I found something real, and now I'm retiring after all these years. It's what Confucius said, work a job you love and you'll never work another day. No one has to teach a plant to grow toward the light. You have the ability to get to know the people around you in such a meaningful and warm and interpersonal way that they want what you have. You have an opportunity to know their skills and their strengths, so how you can give them things that are going to help them shine. So all of a sudden, what's inside of them comes out. You also have the ability to make it social. Your job is not to be BFFs, but how can you create an environment where people want to be together? There's a company in Las Vegas. They were spending a lot of money every Friday having beer and pizza in the afternoon. They closed the office early. As the company kept growing, the CFO said, this is costing us a lot of money. By the end of next year, we're going to spend a lot of money on beer and pizza. What I suggest we do is we ask employees to vote. Do you want beer and pizza, or do you want us to all, we'll just give you $2,000 at the end of the year, extra in your check, and you can buy your own beer and pizza. Guess what the employees said? Beer and pizza. Because it was an opportunity to break bread with people you enjoy. It's hard to laugh, and it's hard to eat with people you don't like. Now, I know we do it every holiday, but that's family. We love them. We don't necessarily like them. But it's really hard to volunteer to be in the company of people you don't respect, so that was a very good sign that they were willing to be together, and that was way more important than the monetary value. Getting targeted. Where do you want to be? I want to be tied into helping you get there. You can be the light. You already are the light. Now you can just turn it up a little notch. Before I finish, are there any questions? Any comments? Any good jokes? Okay. Well, thank you all very much.